Hello there and welcome to February's live stream painting demonstration. So I have just a cotton canvas that I toned about maybe 45 minutes ago with burnt umber. So it's still a little bit fluid. So a little bit of odorless mineral spirits and burnt umber. So since this is a live stream, you won't really have the photo reference on the top left corner of the screen just because you can't really edit um, with YouTube Live that I know of. Um, but in any case, the photo reference I will post to the Facebook photo reference group a little bit later on. So once this video is public. So I'm looking for the top placement of the head. And this is going to be paint along style, just like the previous videos. So that means you can have this playing while you are working on your own studio paintings, or if you want to draw or paint along, you want to have a link to the photo reference. Again, just check the Facebook photo reference group. So I'm looking for the bottommost portion of the chin. Here's the corner of the side of the face. So remember, I do live stream painting demonstrations the first Saturday of every month, 12 o'clock p.m. for patrons on my Patreon account in the live stream tier. I also do live chats the first Sunday of every month. So I will be doing that actually tomorrow. So same time, 12 o'clock p.m. So right now I'm just thinking of the placement of the head. And with the canvas, I just cut it up so that once this is done, I have enough space. If I want to put this on a stretcher, so it becomes an oil on canvas, a stretched canvas. Or if I want, I can also mount this onto a panel. Then it becomes a cotton canvas panel. And the model is our model, Madeline. You've seen her in several different painting demonstrations on this channel. So now for the interior shapes, I've just put a little mark right here. So currently in the stream, no one is logged on. So it might just be me talking to myself for a while, but that's okay. But when or if someone does log on, they have the option. So if you're interested in joining my Patreon live stream tier, the live stream does have the option to write to me in real time as I am doing the painting demonstration. So I'm just looking for the outside shape of the face in conjunction to this interior shape here. So I'm going to use a bristle brush to hopefully push the paint a little bit. Yep. So that's why I toned the surface not too long ago so that it's a little bit fluid, so that the eraser brush technique would be a little bit easier. Now, as this is paint along style, I won't really be talking throughout all of the footage. So like I said, go ahead, check out the Facebook photo reference group. Once this is uploaded to YouTube, I'll type that into this description box below, along with the list of the colors that I'm using. But this is pretty much the old standard palette. Also bear in mind, since this is a live stream, it is possible that the internet could lag. There could be some internet interference, and also the audio won't be as crisp. As with the usual painting videos, since I use a microphone for those. So with this one, it's just the app, the YouTube app for live stream. Just following the center line over here. Now the live chats, I will not make public to YouTube, and the live chats I won't save either. So the live chats are meant for, just conversation, talking about anything really. Usually it's art related, and I have the YouTube live set up while I'm working on a studio painting, so you can talk to me, and at the same time you can see what's going on in the studio. So I always have quite a few paintings going on at once. And with this technique, I'm trying not to press too heavily to erase. If I press too heavily, like that, it will subtract. I can do that, and I will, but I will subtract when the time comes. But right now, it's just about basic shape. Also, if you're curious as to how the live painting demonstration and the live chat works for my patrons in those tiers, what I do is I create patron specific posts. So Patreon makes it so that only patrons in specified tier are able to click the post or access the post, and then in the posts they have the links to attend the live streams. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start to cover the darks with the burnt umber. And since there's still a little bit of mineral spirits left on this brush, I don't have to add anything else to it. So I'm very quickly trying to cover all of the darks. Cautious not to lose these lines, however. This is very much like a charcoal drawing at this point. I think I can also unify the darks for the eyes a little bit. Subtract just a little bit. With the same brush, I'm gonna unify the darks a little more. I'm using kind of like a scrubbing technique really to mass in these darks. So there's a specific look I'm going after with this, with the darks very flat. The image just kind of emanating from the light. And it's okay if we lose some of the information for the features. It's fine. Just keep it simplified. And we can also make it more specific sometimes when we lose information, like the point of the nose there. It needs to actually come down a little bit. Probably need a different brush for that. So I'm just kind of moving the point of the nose down. Just a tad bit. So a lot of paint handling goes into this technique. Now there's a shadow up here as well. So again, I'm just gonna lightly, just like charcoal. It's just like charcoal. Press harder when you need more, need a darker mark, and lighter. It's a lighter mark. This is also a pretty neat way to create an underpainting, but we will go over the lights with color eventually. Usually an underpainting done like this is referred to as an open grisaille, depending on which school you go to. Some may call it something else as I kick the camera. Oops. A little bit of mineral spirits. Starting to get kind of tacky. Now with the photo reference, when it is uploaded to Facebook, it will be cropped probably there. So I'm not going to paint too much below the neck. I'll show. So this is what I usually do. I usually will put a brush stroke, or if it's a drawing, just a mark like that to suggest the shoulders, because it's kind of weird. Usually when you have a kind of like a floating head. Here we'll put a little mark for the suprasternal notch, sternocleidomastoid going down here, over here, but not much more than that. And that's just because I really am not in a good position to get demonetized from YouTube. I think I see one person or two, I think two on the live stream. So as I'm creating this drawing, so for someone who just logged on, so this is just an umber sketch, but I'm doing this in a kind of wipeout technique. So first I toned the canvas, so it's still kind of slick. So first I toned the canvas with the burnt umber, and I'm using it to help me draw very much like charcoal. And with this one, this is going to be uploaded to the main YouTube channel afterwards, or to the YouTube channel afterwards. So the photo reference for this, this is Madeline. So the photo reference that I'm using for this, I know you can't see it over there, is going to be on the Facebook photo reference group. But feel free to ask me any questions as I'm painting. So since this is handling just like a charcoal, like I was saying a little bit earlier, see more pressure will have a darker mark. Less pressure like this will have a lighter mark. And I'm going for a kind of a contrasty type look for this painting. See how I can subtract a little bit more easily with just a bristle brush. Though I may end up painting the background a different color, but I'm not entirely sure yet. So if you have experience with wipeout drawing in charcoal, it's very similar to this. Okay, so now I'm ready to do the wipeout part. So I have a microfiber cloth without any mineral spirits on it. This should subtract a little bit depending on how long the tone has been, but it may not subtract at all. We'll see. Okay, so it's subtracting a little bit. I don't want to use too much mineral spirits, so I'm very cautious with where I use it. So I'm going to make it so that when I do go in with color, I have a lot of the tone underneath to help me out. Also, when you're writing to me on the YouTube app, if I miss any of the things that you are asking me, it's just because I'm looking at both the painting, the screen, and the photo reference. So there's a little bit of a juggling act there. But again, this is just a microfiber cloth like you would buy at a regular, I don't know, like a Target or a Walmart or wherever, depending on where you live. And I usually actually prefer to use these cloths to tone canvases, like to tone a large canvas. Just dump it in mineral spirits and use the burnt umber. And also, as of right now, currently, the episode that I had uploaded or started uploading for this week in particular, this week's YouTube video, is still in the process of uploading. I started uploading it yesterday in the afternoon. So it's also in the paint along style, and it failed twice. So at this point, I don't know. I think it's just internet problems. Which ironically, I feel like if I were to post this one this week, so currently, like today, it would probably upload faster than the one that I'm trying to upload that's already edited, which is kind of funny. So this is a little cast shadow from the hair, though I probably should minimize the value a little bit, or sorry, make it a little lighter so it's not confused with the dark of the hair. Okay, so after drawing this much, so it's not a perfect drawing. It's not taken as far as I would with like a transfer drawing or anything like that. Um, this should suffice for the umber sketch and for the um, initial darks. So now I'm going to switch into different brushes. So let's go for darks first. So just alizarin permanent, ivory black, a little bit of sap green, just to bring down the heat. Let's see if we can put in some of the darker accents first. Hopefully it doesn't glare too much. And as I'm doing that, I should probably, let's just use the drawing brush, mix up a shadow color, so sap green, yellow ochre, so now I can get kind of a true value now for the shadow. Working over top of the umber sketch. So I'm going to go back and forth between the dark here and the shadow color, so I can get the edge quality a little more quickly. Uh-oh, I saw a little lag on the screen. I think I do have really bad internet right now. Can you at least hear what I'm saying? Or the words I'm saying as I'm doing this demonstration? That's not a good sign. So I hope that you can hear the audio coming from the phone. If not, there's really not anything I can do. Oh, you can hear me. Hey, Robert. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you can hear me. That's always my biggest concern with the streams, because if the audio goes through, because when I'm recording a YouTube video, I can monitor the audio, but with the streams, I can't monitor anything. Cool. Thanks for that. I have peace of mind now. So it's just a little easier, I think, for me to work from the darks right now. I think just because I want to keep the lights so minimal, yet very descriptive. And right now, just working the Terminator line, so the Terminator line between light and shadow, I think will really help. A little bit more yellow ochre. It's actually a little bit warmer on the model's head. And Robert, I will post the photo reference on the Facebook group. I think it's just easier to download the picture from there. Though I will crop the model's head probably about here. I think when I upload it. So I'm really just going to work over here. Alright, so now I'm gonna just switch to a bigger brush just so I can cover that space a little bit more quickly. And back to the hair color. So burnt umber, ultramarine blue now. To add some variance here. So you can kind of see how the painting is starting to evolve from the umber sketch. Now I'm starting to, little by little, add the darker tones. And I'm going to use the burnt umber tone in particular here to suggest some of the hair. So I'm letting the layer underneath do some of the work for me. So this is how to be strategically lazy. So now that I have the darks all covered, yeah, I mean, as long as it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, I try to go by, I don't know if it's a Sargent quote, but an artist would say economy of means. So trying not to do more work to get a point across in a painting. So that way I'm kind of like optimizing what I'm doing. Okay, let's see how bright we can go now. Yeah, less is more sometimes. though sometimes more is more when it comes to depicting planes and things. It's a nice balance, I think. It's hard to find a balance. So now the titanium white, yellow ochre, just so I don't have something too, I don't want to have straight white. Yeah, it's hard to find just enough, like the point where I have just enough for something. There we go. Now we see how bright we can go. And so now I can control the range. I have the darker darks, I have the basic shapes, and I have the lightest light to kind of anchor and relate everything. So now we can really get started with the flesh colors. So I'd like to use a smaller brush sometimes to have more control. And especially if I spend this much time trying to draw something, I don't want to just go in with a big brush and then just lose all of the information I was working so hard to find. So the smaller brush, a little bit more pink. It might be too pink. Sap green. And I'm gonna let the underpainting, so to speak, the layer underneath kind of help me with some of the turning values. Meaning like, these little values right here. So a little bit of the cadmium red, sap green. Maybe a little more red. Okay, so now I'm going to get a different brush. Go right back to the highlight color. So very much like a charcoal drawing. Gonna go for the light on the nose. And then control the range. So let's drop the value down a little bit. So I'm going to treat some of the areas very much like a charcoal drawing first. A little bit more light over here. But only a little bit. I don't want to go crazy with highlights everywhere. Now for the side plane of the mouth. So let's get the other brush that I had and let's mix up the color for the lips. Maybe a little more red. I also have to bear in mind that it's going to mix on the canvas with the burnt umber. So I'm making it just a little more red on the palette than it will eventually look on the painting. A little bit of alizarin permanent. Let's put in the darker accent. Might have been too much. So back to the red. You know, I wish the phone made a noise or something whenever a comment goes in. So remember, if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask while I'm painting. So a little bit more pink there. And right now I'm just trying to not paint the same way I usually do with the Ala Primas. So usually it will take me a while to get to the lips. So right now I'm just trying to change the usual. I'm not trying to make it business as usual with the painting. I'm trying to explore. Sometimes I feel like I can get trapped in a very procedural approach. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and then soften. So right now I'm trying to kind of break that habit. All right, so now, yeah, sometimes it's fun to take a different path to get to a similar outcome. It's fun to explore. Or a better path. It's hard to know sometimes what a better path is, I think. You know, the thing is, when the more we learn with painting, you know, we use one technique and it works, and then we're scared to branch out and try other things. That happens to me a lot, and my teacher would, yeah, until we get there. And my teacher would tell me this, like, would tell me that I think too much or something with the process. So, yeah, art puts you in a very unique position. You really are kind of using both hemispheres, so to speak, of your brain. You know, if you're too procedural, the painting can end up being like a, I don't know, like Nelson with Shanks would say, like a block of ice. But then if you have no procedure, then it's kind of hard to know what you're looking at. Yeah, it's about finding a balance. Yep. Well said. That's what I'm kind of trying to do with the YouTube videos too. Trying to find some kind of balance. So a little bit more of a pinkish halftone. The top of the nose. So that's the top area of the wing of the nose. The light's coming from this kind of direction. So the lightest planes on the nose are actually going to be down here. That little red mark is usually a nice thing to have. I saw that in a lot of the um, Rembrandt master studies that I'd be looking at. I don't know why, but it's very appealing. The kind of reddish halftone. I guess it's probably just light going through some of the more transparent, I think, transparent skin. But either way, the little red note is nice to have sometimes. So I actually have to move the nostril down a little bit. Just a little adjustment. I still need more highlight, so back end of the brush. Just kind of scraping the highlight on the back of the brush. Okay, so now I'm going to move towards these halftones. A little bit of the alizarin permanent, sap green, more alizarin permanent. I'm just going to see what this value looks like right now. It's pretty much the value that I want. So these planes are facing the light not as much. They're not facing the light as much over here as down here. I'm just using a small brush right now. Control the range a little more. I kind of lost this plane. This burnt umber tone that I put earlier actually also helps to not paint so bright, so saturated. So I can use like the alizarin, and it mixes with the burnt umber. So it doesn't end up being as bright, which I kind of like. Now I have to be very cautious with the value transitions around here. Oh, you like the more subtle colors too. Yeah, I find that I would struggle a lot with that in my earlier videos. My colors would be a little too bright. I'm gonna use a little bit of medium, the solvent-free fluid from Gamblin. Yeah, I like when the flesh tones are more muted. I think it gives it a more naturalistic look. So I have to be careful with this area. If I don't follow the form cautiously, it may end up looking like somebody went and punched the model in the face. So very, very cautious for the structure. And less is more is a big thing with this kind of stuff. I'd rather lean towards it being flat than lean towards it looking like she got, like, you know, punched. Which of course I have to get into this eye eventually. You'll see when I post the picture, this eye is really dark. Like, it's pretty much in shadow. Speaking of in shadow, I have to push this so it makes more sense. And now that I'm putting the color in, I noticed that I had too much of her cheek showing. So it's a pretty neat photo reference to work from. It's kind of like already chiaroscuro in this area. So now let's start to push the light. Titanium white, cadmium red, and yeah, I usually have two whites, right? The flake white and the titanium white, but I have to go to the store. Kind of lazy. I have to get myself to the store to get my favorite Williamsburg flake white. I think I'm doing okay without it these past few days. Just means I have to be very cautious with how much white goes into the middle tones. And I'm letting the tone of the surface act as a middle tone wherever possible. So the photo reference makes this look really dark, but I'm going to defy the photo reference a little bit. Just because if I feel like if I paint it too similar to the picture, it's going to look like her eye was punched. I'll actually be painting her. Well, I'm painting another image of her currently. So in the live chat, I actually have a painting of her. She's leaning on a pillow, kind of like a daydreaming. She's definitely my most reliable model. So I'm pushing the light a little more. And at the same time, I'm using the color itself to draw over here. Halftone brush. Well, actually, this was a dark brush, but now it's halftone brush. Very carefully walking my way down the bottom here. It's a little cast shadow. A little cast shadow right under here. Yeah, it helps to plan out these demonstrations. I actually was thinking through how I would approach this painting a little bit differently than my other ones. So it helps to have a plan sometimes. So yeah, I'm just going to continue to close up the forms, and then once this becomes more realistic, so to speak, then I'll probably put a little bit of a lighter color in the background to contrast with the hair. It kind of makes me think of one of my favorite TV painters, Bob Ross. He'd say that he would plan out his painting um, before he went to bed. He would be thinking about what he would be demonstrating. I actually was kind of doing that too, interestingly enough, just thinking how I would get these effects as quickly as possible. I'm sure Bob Ross had to think about that too, the timing. Of course, I have way more time. I don't have like a 30-minute PBS show, though I wish I did. Let's see. Running out of brushes here. So I'm going to start to put in this halftone and soften these edges. Very cautious with the edges. So yeah, this one is soft, but it's still sharp. Then it gets a little sharper up here, and then more lost of an edge down here. And I want to describe the, oh, my leg fell asleep. I want to describe the curvature of the root of the nose right here. Gonna go back again to the shadow. Just throw in a little more red. Wow, drawing really pays off. So with the video that's probably still trying to upload on the YouTube server, I went much quicker into color, much more quickly into color, and I don't think I'm at 60 minutes 50 something seconds, and I've moved much faster. You know, it's like the tortoise and the hare kind of thing. It really helps to spend your time with the drawing. I'm going to push the dark for the side of the mouth. Just a tiny little brush stroke for that. Now there's a whole bunch of middle tones here that I haven't really addressed too much, so now it's probably the time to do that. That was the wrong brush. It's my halftone brush. So I'm going to make the middle tones a little bit warmer in contrast to these lighter flesh colors. So very carefully adding these turning values, just like a drawing. A little bit of light beneath the orbicularis oris. Although, you know, I hear a lot of artists call this obicularis instead of orbicularis. So I'm kind of starting to wonder if I got it wrong. But it's definitely spelled with an R. I don't know. English is tricky. Whoops. So now this is the little halftone that I like to describe as the face turning into itself, which is kind of weird sounding, but that's what it is. It's like the planes turning inwards here. It's a very drastic change of planes in a very small area. Much easier to see in, when working from life, however. Kind of have to make it up working from photo reference. I'm going to clean off the brush a little bit. It's my mineral spirits container. This little thing here. Although it's gotten kind of gross over time. Yeah, it's pretty crusty. But I also have a second one too. So the left has I had mineral spirits, and then the right has the solvent-free fluid. Now that is a very dangerous plane, the side of the philtrum. So this I don't want to mess up either. It's one of the areas that you really want to downplay. So what I'm doing is pushing it first, pushing the planes here a little more, and then I'm going to push it away so that what remains is just a glimpse, and hopefully a glimpse is enough. Another kind of easy way to do that is to go in with the fan brush lightly. So what I want is just that plane, this little tiny plane change to show, but even more subtle than the picture shows. And you'll see what I'm talking about. The picture kind of overdoes this plane when I post it to Facebook. Still not quite right. Clean off the brush. Now I think I can move the upper lip a little more. Might be pushing the contrast too much. And of course, I'm going to be very cautious with that center line. It's very easy to mess that up. Different brush. So I'm very carefully kind of walking my way through the center line here. Should hit right there. It's actually a little interesting shape right above the chin. I think that this is it's a little darker area in the shadow, and I think there's just a little more ambient light or reflected light going on here that's making this look a little darker. But I'll just go ahead and put that in anyway. I'm going to sit back and hopefully my leg wakes up. Okay, all right, so this is now going to need a little more refinement. I'm going to clean off the brush. So now I'm going to key the light a little bit. So I'm going to key this and this. So I'm going to key this off of this. So that means I'm going to bring the value very close to the to this one. In fact, let's just make it the same first. Mostly titanium white, some yellow ochre. Okay, so they're about the same, but not really. A little more titanium white. Okay, so now they're the same. So in keying the light, I want to make this just a tiny bit different from this. So it's actually a little more pink from what I'm seeing. So the cadmium red, just mixing right into it. So just keying the light a little bit. Now going back to this, I can now start to put the values around it. Still trying to preserve that light. Now it's going to get a little darker down here. And then brighter as it approaches the side of the nose. That's a little closer. There's also a plane here I haven't described for the side of the chin. So I'll start off with the highlight. Then let's get the halftone brush. So I'm going to use a color change rather than a value change for the cheek. And that's because I'm going to use a little bit of trickery here. So if I make it too dark over here to delineate the side of the zygomatic bone, it's going to look like she was punched again. I'm trying to avoid that look of it like being punched anywhere. So I actually have to move the highlight up. Probably there. So yeah, I'm going to use a color change instead of a value change, which is actually kind of tricky to do. And what this will do is it will fool the eye into thinking that I did put a value change for the cheekbone, but at the same time it'll minimize that look of it being too dark and then making it look like the form is caved in as if she was, punched. Now normally this is more easily attained with glazing, but we can still do this wet onto wet. So when I'm trying to be safe with a plane change like this, I'll make the plane change a color change. So this color should hopefully be the same value as this one, just different color. And the reds are pretty useful for that. I don't know why, but reds tend to look very dark, even when they're the same value. It's a color theory question right there. Gotta take out the Munsell color chart. That's just all optics. And now I'm just slowly turning these values. Now there should be a value change here, which there is, but it's so slight. It's so minute. And speaking on that, there should be a little more warmth here, but maybe not the same kind of color, so I'm gonna use a little bit of the medium. So I'm gonna make it an orangey pink. A little more medium. And before long, I should do something for the background. So let me just put in this more yellowish tone. Or here. And just make the edge a little softer. Okay, so for the background, I think I'm going to make it lighter here, kind of like a light bluish, and then gray darker towards here. Kind of like an old school trick, like making the light contrast the shadow, and then the shadow contrast the light. So with a different brush, titanium white, ultramarine blue. Though I don't want it to be too blue, so I'm going to aim towards the grayish. Yeah, Madeline. Yeah, the model is Madeline. I know, I've painted her a lot. She's my most reliable model. She'll actually be the model for my portrait class that is starting up this Monday. So I'm teaching a portrait class in Howard County, Maryland. So I really want to teach more classes. I'm thinking of like online classes. But I need to find platforms. I'm glad it kind of resembles the model. So that's a good thing. That's a little too blue, I think, so ivory black. See how the background kind of makes the shadow pop a little bit. Now on the photo reference, when you see the photo reference, it's not like this. There is actually a lighter shape behind her, but there's a dark shape over here. But I'm not painting in the dark shape. So contrasting these colors really does help, I think. So now that should hopefully start to make this really pop. Now it's going to get slightly darker as we move towards the right. I think I should probably paint a little more opaque. So more titanium white. I think that helps a little more. I'm actually going to use the background to help draw a little bit. So this actually has to come down. And at the same time making that edge softer. So that should help with the contrast, I think. Now to go back to the lights on the face. Now I can really start to play around with color a little bit. So I'm going to push some more pink into here. Very slightly. So this is looking ambiguous right now. So I think I just need more light on the side of the nose that's starting to look a bit dark. So now I'm just starting to walk my way around the form again. So this is kind of the in-between stuff that's not really seen in the shorter painting videos with a lot of editing, just because it's really time consuming. And this is a very peculiar plane change from this point to this point. Meaning it's kind of difficult to describe. So it's light dark, light, dark. So it's very congested. Now I'll go back to the shape in question, which is over here. So contrasting this to this. So this needs to be just one, maybe three, I think 3 values lighter than this. Or maybe even just one. But it should be a little bit lighter. But this should be lighter still than this. And this should be lighter than that. So it's kind of tricky. And then, of course, the wing of the nose needs to be a little darker, a little more defined. So I don't want that to be too light. So it can't compete with this. So it's, again, very tricky. But it still needed to be a little bit lighter. Then I'm leaving the edge a little more sharp over here as well. And I did say there was a little shadow here earlier when I was drawing, but I don't think I want to place that. So I'm just instead just going to put a little soft, but almost nothing here. Almost nothing. So now I'm going to clean the brush, stand back. Almost there. I'm starting to get to the point where I don't know what to do. When that happens, I'll go to the hair. So with the hair, it's pretty good to leave it in the underpainting color, but I think now that I have so much color variance, might as well throw in some color variance for the hair. I just like to use the flesh tone. So it doesn't get too cold. Okay, I think since I've gotten to the point where I don't know what else to do in this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Robert, do you see something that I should do? I'm actually eyeballing this. This looks too like a hole, so I gotta fix that. But I kind of like the look of this, leaving this as it is. So, Robert, do you see something that's bothering you? I don't mean to put you on the spot. But it's okay. I mean, the things that people tell me on YouTube these days. I hope the internet's not lagging too much either. Nothing's standing out. Well, that could be a good or a bad thing. But I think today's demo is much more relaxing than I think than filming usually is for me. Like I was saying before, right? I already had a plan in mind for how I wanted this painting to look. Whereas sometimes with YouTube, I just start filming something and hope it turns out, then voice it over later. Or just talk through the painting. It's also kind of nice when half of the face is in shadow and the model's looking down. Makes life much easier. Yeah, it's easier when there's less details or less minutia. But sometimes, when you're painting someone that has a lot of wrinkles, yeah, in the time that I have, yeah, it's easier when the arrangement is more simple. But sometimes, when you're painting a model that has more of like form overlaps on their face and things, it's actually easier, I think, sometimes for me than painting a really smooth face. A smooth face, like, someone in their early to mid 20s, sometimes is a little more difficult to me. Even though it's, very simplistic, sometimes it can be very challenging to paint very soft forms. There we go. I finally see something. I guess it helps to try and push color variation. It kind of helps to sneak color variation in. Like here, I'm actually going to push it a little cooler. This is not really something I see on the photo reference, but just looking at the color scheme right now, I feel like I could push some cooler notes. So here, I'm even going to sneak in a little bit of blue over there. And this is just to be sneaky. I don't want it to show too much. I'm not sure if it'll pick up on camera, but in your own paintings, try to sneak in color variation almost imperceptibly. Just sneak it in there. Just so maybe from at a distance, someone will be able to see like all of the nuance and the colors. Okay, where else can I sneak? I'm gonna sneak in a little bit of a cooler tone under here. Use the sap green for that. But not quite as cool as, say, this one was. Very sneaky. The value might have been a problem. Push the value dark by accident. Just little spots of cooler color. So even over here, just a little color variation. Not much, however. If I overdo that, I'm going to give her a 5 o'clock shadow. So I have to be very careful with that. As long as the value is the same and the color, I vary the color a little bit, it shouldn't stick out too much. And then after doing that, I finally see an area that's a little bit ambiguous. So I could take some attention now. Just the chin. This is still a little choppy. Not quite as developed as this. So now just gonna go for the middle tone brush. I'm gonna stand back. So the reason it's choppy is this doesn't make sense to me. I don't really need the photo reference for this. A form needs to have a very specific beginning and ending instead of a kind of scattered pattern of values like that is. So I'm saying that the chin, the boundary of the chin is like all down here and over. And then this is the bottom of the orbicularis. So I have to describe that with more clarity now. Now I'm going to get the fan brush. Just trying to make this tiny bit softer. I'm going to clean another brush. Now I want to describe this little curve underneath the orbicularis oris. It goes all down like that. I think it's fine here. It's just this is ambiguous now. Even the value itself, it's too light. I'm gonna try to bring it down just a hair. Oh, that's too dark. Very subtle stuff there. And I'm making these changes without really much reference to the picture. Gonna push a little bit more warmth on the side of the nose. Very cautious though. And over here, needs a little more clarity now. But I'm also cautious not to artificially define everything. So sometimes it makes more sense to leave some things less clear. Because when we're, working from life, you don't really see everything all at once. It's kind of like seeing in sequence. Okay. Alright, so I don't really see much else now. Just a few little touches. Yeah, that little like wash that I did earlier with the burnt umber really helped. I should add a lot more than the acrylic tones that I've been doing more recently. And the trick was I left it for about 45 minutes or something like that, the tone. So then when I started drawing, when I started painting, um, it started to kind of sink into the canvas. The canvas that I've been using, I purchased 2 rolls of Frederick's. So Frederick's cotton canvas. So it's really nice and toothy, so it helps the paint grip a little bit more. So that really helped with the application of the paint. So Robert, do you have any questions? As I'm just kind of doing little fine adjustments. Okay. So I think this painting is almost there. I will share one little thing that's been on my mind about painting. Um, one of the reasons I really enjoy working from life as opposed to photo reference is that when I'm working from life, I can just keep working. So, you know, I don't reach a point where I feel too, like, how to describe it. So when I'm working from photo reference, like right now, my fear is to make it too close to the picture. I don't like that. I don't like making a painting look just like a photograph. That's my fear when I'm working from picture for an extended period of time. Uh, and that's one of the things that makes classical painting from pictures very difficult for me, is that there's a lot of missing information um, in photo references, especially even with the Canon I use. The camera, Canon T7i. It's a pretty good camera for photography, but even that, I feel like I don't have enough information. So that's my fear with photo reference, making it too similar to a picture when I work on it for an extended amount of time. I thought I would just throw that in there. So right now I'm just going in and making things soft, refining, making edges more descriptive. But I'm trying to pay less and less attention now to the photo reference for the reasons I just described. Yeah, it is good to add imagination. So I'm trying to do a little more these days. You know, like when you do see the photo reference, you'll see how much imagination went into this, how much I changed and manipulated the image. So yeah, it's good to use your imagination, especially with photo reference. Yeah. I hope one of these days in the future I'll be able to afford live models all the time. That's ideal. It's gonna take me a while to get there. Or maybe it won't. We'll see. Patreon definitely helps for that. Pretty soon I'll be able to afford a new computer. The one I have is kind of a fossil. But anyway, I digress. Right now I'm just trying to make that look less of a little spot. Like this looks like a little spot. So I'm just trying to spot fix, I guess, so to speak, with the painting. So I'm just trying to make this a little bit darker in comparison to this area, but still very, very risky. I'm aiming a little more towards the warm. If this goes too cold, I'm gonna accidentally give her a mustache. So a lot of things to watch out for with that. So right now I'm just kind of exploring, finding things that I can change or improve. So that's a slight bit darker than that. Now it's really just edge that I'm looking for now. So this is too generic of an edge right there. Too cut and paste. Just gonna add a little bit of variability to the edge. A little bit of variance. I'm leaving it sharper there, softer here. There's a lot of tension going on here. And this edge over here, it's too flat right now. Or too flat of a change. I need a middle tone. Some would call it blending. I call it just putting in a middle tone and then making the edge soft like that. Just looking for things that are ambiguous. That's ambiguous. So areas that I'm going to leave in ambiguity are probably there. Corner there, this. I might have to define a little more. A little more alizarin permanent. So that's going to give me the cast shadow, but it can't be as dark as this, the bottom of the eye. A little more of a specific shape for that. The eyelid's gonna need planes. I'm really just trying to flatten out the eyelid right now. If it's too round, it's gonna look like it's flamed, like inflamed. So the more realistic this gets, the more kind of cosmetic it gets. Let's try to flatten this out. I think that's a little more flat now. I will just push the hair towards the eye a little more. Just a little bit. This is almost like surgery. Feels almost like it. Especially when the painting is wet. If I were working in layers, I can easily just wipe off a mistake. I'm going to stand back again. I'm going to push a little more warmth to this. I think that should be about it. That's what I said like 30 minutes ago. At this point, I'm starting to get a little bit timid of ruining it. I'm not much of a gambler. I feel like if I do continue pushing, it might be kind of a gamble. And with YouTube too. We're just past the 2 hour, or I just passed the 2 hour mark. So I hope it doesn't cut off the video. Okay, I think that should be good, or good enough. So Robert, I know I already asked this before. Any other questions? My leg is still asleep, by the way. Okay. Thanks, Robert. I'm glad you enjoyed the demonstration. And as of course, I get asked this a lot. What I'm gonna do is just get a palette knife and scrape off the paints and put them in a little plastic container and put that in the freezer until it's time to work again. That being said, thank you so much, Robert, for watching the demonstration. Once this is uploaded to YouTube, you will be able to see the entire thing from the beginning, and I'll also upload I'll post the picture on the Facebook photo reference group, the Yupari Facebook photo reference group. So thank you so much for watching. I wish you the best, and I'll see you on the next live stream.